the greatest messianic movement in all Jewish history. Now, if I ask this question, most of us, imagine if I said to you, what's the greatest messianic movement in Jewish history? We'd all probably put our hand up and say, yeah, I know this one, right? Jesus, right? Like it's quite clear that Jesus has had the biggest impact in Messianic history. But he's not talking about Jesus in this section. He's talking about an individual that most Christians have probably never heard of. Most people who are not Jewish have probably never heard of. And if you're a Jew and you've heard about this, it's probably, I would say, not the majority. And in the book, he talks about why that potentially is. But one should think, with people like Rabbi Singer, as I've shown you, speaking of how it's so clear from a Jewish perspective, right? We believe as Christians, it's very clear from a Christian perspective, and time has borne out the truth, right? Jesus came, John the Baptist prepared his way, as it says in Isaiah 40 and Malachi chapter 3, one will come before the Lord and prepare his way. He's predicting the destruction of the temple. He's predicting his death and his resurrection. The resurrection is the most likeliest option when you look at the evidence of what's actually happened. Why would the disciples radically change their mindsets, their views for a lie, for something they didn't believe? That doesn't make sense. The simplest solution to that equation is that Jesus did rise from the dead and was shown to be the Messiah. Now, up until this point, we've covered about 1,500 years of history. Now, notice what he says here. He says, the next century witnessed the greatest messianic movement in all Jewish history. Shabbatai Zevi. Just let me know in the chat section. Have you ever heard of this individual? Shabbatai Zevi. Zevi was a Sephardi Jew. A Sephardic Jew. Like, for those of you who don't know, the Sephardic Jews are like, they're like the creme de la creme. Like, if you want to be a Jew, you want to be Sephardic. When I show you some of these things, you're going to be thinking to yourself, you actually can't make this up. You can't make this up. I was literally reading this book, reading about this guy, and thinking to myself, oh wow, they really believed this guy was the Messiah. And they really believed in this guy as the Messiah so much that it's being classified as the greatest messianic movement in Jewish history. But it's very clear to me how the Bible talks about the Jews in large part have been blinded. Because you'd have to be blinded to believe in someone like this as the Messiah. It's so obvious. But then I caught myself and said, you know, well, it's obvious for a Christian. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's obvious for a Jew who's rejected Jesus as the Messiah, who's been raised in an environment to reject Jesus as the Messiah, and to classify Jesus as some heretic, some charlatan, some false Messiah. Shabbatai Zevi, a Sephardi Jew who was born in Smyrna, modern day Turkey, in 1626. He was born on the 9th of Ab, apparently. And this is apparently the traditional date of the birth of the Messiah, ever since early Talmudic times. So this individual, Shabbatai Zevi, comes on the scene, and he's a Sephardic Jew, right? So, like, kudos to him, right? He's of that special ilk, apparently. He's born on the day which is traditionally the day that the Messiah will be born. So he says, look, yeah, I'm born on the day the Messiah is born. Now, Notice what it says next, because this is where you begin to scratch your head. And you're going to scratch your head even more so when you think about what Rabbi Singer has been talking about in those videos, about how it's so clear Jesus wasn't the Messiah, but Jews are so in the know, they wouldn't be tricked to fall for somebody like Jesus. But these individuals that they're falling for can't even lick Jesus's boots. And I'm saying that from a messianic claim perspective. Jesus has so much stuff going for him in line with him being the Messiah. Most of these individuals, especially this individual, Shabbatai Zevi, who's the greatest example of a messianic movement in history, it's as clear as day. Listen to what it says next. This individual, Shabbatai Zevi, he suffered from manic depressive states. Who does that remind you of? Who is a holy man, apparently, who came with a message of, oh, he's special, he's sent by God, but had or was known for manic depressive states, wanted to throw himself off a cliff many times, wanted to die on many different occasions, not a one-off, consecutively. Who does that remind you of? He was suffering from manic depressive states. The guy who got revelation and said the devil was speaking to him. He believed it was the devil speaking to him. This is who it should remind you of. The Prophet of Islam. Very similar. But this individual, Shabbatai Zevi, born in 1626, was suffering from manic depressive states. He was majorly depressed. It says he immersed himself in the study of the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism. He found himself going deep into study into Jewish mysticism. That's what study of the Kabbalah is. And it said, and after the horrors of the Chmielnicki massacres in 1648 to 1649, he became convinced he was the Messiah. So he's this guy, he comes on the scene, apparently born on the traditional day of the Messiah, the day the Messiah will be born. He's having these manic depressive states. He's just depressed. This is the kind of individual that they'll put on antidepressants today and say, you know what, you need to chill out. He immerses himself in study of the Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism. And there's these massacres. And then from that point on, he's convinced himself that he's the Messiah. Now, if his manic depression was not enough to ring alarm bells, look at what it says next. In 1662, talk about breadcrumbs and clues. After having twice married and immediately divorced his brides, he married in Cairo a young woman named Sarah, who had survived the Polish massacres as a child, grown up to live a dissolute life, and let it be known that she was destined to become the wife of the Messiah. Now, you have a guy named Shabbatai Zevi who says and is professed that he's born on the birthday of the Messiah. He's married twice and gets divorced from both of those women and then marries another woman. he marries a woman who says she's destined to become the Messiah. Now, I don't know if it's because he had been saying at this point he's the Messiah, so this is just how she duped him into marrying her, or if it's the opposite. But this is crazy. Notice what it says next. The shades of David Rubini briefly flitted across the scene in the form of rumors that a Jewish army was ready to march out of the Arabian desert to conquer Palestine. Okay. So he comes on the scene. There's more. There's more. The next image I'm going to show you, photo I'm going to show you is of what's right under this. But imagine what we know at this point about Shabbatai Zevi, which, again, as is highlighted up here, the greatest messianic movement in all of Jewish history. The Jews fell for a guy like this as the Messiah in mass. This wasn't some local situation. This was mass, as I'm going to show you. But people like Rabbi Singer want you to believe that they could reject Jesus as the Messiah and confidently do it according to Rabbi Singer, but accept someone like Shabbatai Zevi and all these other individuals as people who were the Messiah. I said it gets worse. This individual has manic depressive attacks. He's in a manic depressive state, chronic depression. He's married 2 women and immediately divorced them. Another red flag. And he's married this 3rd woman who's apparently destined to marry the Messiah. It gets worse. Rabbi Singer loves to say that people like Jesus, or more specifically, people like Paul, who Jesus sent out as an apostle, rejected the law or didn't walk according to the law. And this was a red flag. But tell me why it wasn't a red flag for somebody like Shabbatai Zevi. Notice what it says. Shabbatai Zevi's antinomian, mean he's a rebel. Basically, he's against the law. He's rebel acts. But even more so, this is how he got them. His personal beauty and extraordinary charm made people accept his messianic pretensions unquestioningly, and the popular enthusiasm he evoked was unprecedented. This guy had looks, and that is how he gained them. They didn't care or focus on the fact he was in chronic depression. They didn't focus on the fact he married 2 women and immediately divorced them, and they married a 3rd. They didn't focus on the fact that he was a rebel. He didn't follow the laws. They didn't focus on the fact that all he had was apparently good looks and charisma. Do you know why I continue to say that you can't be captivated by how somebody delivers a message? The reason I say that is because when you are so focused on, oh, he speaks so well, or she says it so wisely, they are going to deceive you. It's not about how good somebody delivers a message. It's not about the charisma or the boldness or the clarity they speak in. It's about, is what is being said the truth or not? That's all that matters. That's what matters most, at least. He was a rebel, but he was good looking and he had charisma. So people followed him and believed his messianic claims unquestioningly. It was unprecedented. You mean to tell us, Rabbi Singer, that it was easy to snuff out somebody like Jesus, who's had this great impact the 2,000 years following his death, like he said he would? But somehow Shabbatai Zevi was believed in an unprecedented way. That's just him saying in another way, this was the greatest movement in Jewish history. There was nothing like this. Unprecedented. Nothing like this. Now, he goes further, and what does he say? Why was it unprecedented? Well, he says his fame, Zevi's fame that is, look at that, rapidly. His fame spread fast. Where did it spread fast? Beyond the borders of the Ottoman realm. So bear in mind, this is the 1620s, this is like the 1640s, 1650s. This is Islam time, basically. Because Islam from about 700s, right, 800s, then 750, them periods in time, began taking large realms of land and compelling all these people they're conquering to embrace Islam or die, right? Receive the religion of Islam or pay your tax, your dhimmi tax, which shows that you're subservient, or you will die. Those are the options. His fame spread far and wide rapidly beyond Muslim territory. So Muslim territory was at this time all the way to Morocco, past Morocco to places like Portugal and Spain. That was like the edge heading into Europe, and obviously in the other direction in Asia, and obviously central in Arabia, etc. His fame spread beyond that. Now this is where it gets really interesting. If you thought everything I'd said to you so far is mind-blowing about how they could fall for such a antichrist, what you're going to see in a moment is going to blow your mind, I'm telling you. If you thought what I've shown you so far was red flags, you're going to get the biggest red flag of them all in a moment.